It's going to be an interesting video to make. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a video that's going to be impossible to keep short, but I'll at least try my best to keep the conversation flowing as quickly as I possibly can, as I have a lot of points that I want to address. I have a little notepad of things written down that I'll be going through as quickly as I can. This video is, of course, in response to the video that Seton made where he announced that he's stepping down from his alliance and, gave a bunch of reasons as to why, feeling that the alliance game modes are pretty stale at the moment, too kind of time demanding. He's not happy with the direction that, Act 6 took and seems to be, continuing with Act 7. And it's just kind of feeling burnt out on the game overall. And this happens to everybody, especially post-season. Every single season that I could remember, there's been people that are like, okay, that's it, I'm done. And, eventually a good number of those people come back, but that sometimes people don't come back, and that's kind of the nature of all games, really. But you can't deny that after Seton made his video talking about stepping down from the alliance and stuff like that, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of other YouTube videos that got posted from all kinds of content creators, not just on YouTube, but other platforms as well, and in podcasts and things like that. And the discussions kind of echoed throughout Alliance chats and Discord groups, and everybody's kind of chiming in with, what they are currently finding to be unsatisfactory in MCOC. And I figured, hey man, why not pile on? Why not add to that discussion? Even though I kind of did step back from my alliance already. Let's add to that discussion. And this is kind of an interesting time because it's a little bit reminiscent of 12.0 with how many people are providing feedback about how they're currently not happy in MCOC. But during 12.0, it was pretty different. There was that big update that kind of shook the contest, that kind of rattled things and got people pretty upset, to put it mildly. But this is a little bit different because this is a conversation that's been ongoing for a long time now, and I do think that Kabam listens, but there are definitely times where it feels like they don't, and it feels like a lot of the feedback has just, fallen on deaf ears, basically. And I'm hoping that with all of the feedback coming through now, I'm hoping that we do see some big change to the contest to really shake things up and make the game more enjoyable for everybody again. So before I get into kind of my own thoughts about the current state of the game, I want to quickly run through some of the larger points that I've seen in Seton's video, and that's again have been echoed throughout other videos and things like that. So some of these points include the content in Act 6 and beyond is crazy specific and very punishing. 80% of champions are hardly useful in this game. Content is not rewarding enough, especially compared to spending. War and alliance quests are stale and run on a 24-hour clock with frequent check-ins. Incursions are fun, but have their own set of issues. No small-scale competitive mode. Innovation in questing feels like it's lacking. 6 stars are barely different than 5 stars, which isn't very interesting, and yeah, it just makes that whole 6-star grind feel pretty repetitive to the 5-star grind. Cheating in MCOC is a thing, and it sucks. And then content bloat. There's kind of too much to do in order to try to keep up and try to hit all the different things to do in this game. So those are some of the larger points. Again, I'm sure I missed some things, but that's what I've been hearing the most of, at least. So how do I feel about all this? Well, I largely agree with what everyone's been saying. There's definitely some issues to Marvel Concept of Champions. I made a video about 6 months ago now, back in November actually, talking about overhauling Alliance Wars. And whether you agree with this video or not, man, it was a tough one to make. It actually took over an hour to get my point across, which is kind of embarrassing, honestly. I almost didn't upload it because, I mean, how could I expect anybody to watch a video that long? If you did watch it, thank you very much. But, man, the point that I'm trying to make is, it's difficult. It's difficult to try to find a way to make it so that I'm happy with Alliance Wars. Again, I know some people are happy with Alliance Wars as is, but I'm certainly not. And what I had to do is, look past a lot of the surface level stuff and really dig deep and look at the foundation of the game mode and try to fix that, because that's the only thing that was going to make me happy. If I played competitively in Alliance Wars this last season, I would have hated flow just like everyone else. And seeing a small change to flow, it's not like that would have suddenly made me fall in love with the game mode. Even if they removed flow, even if they removed all of the defensive tactics, these are all very surface level things, and the kind of core issues with Alliance War, they would still exist. So that's what I was doing in that video, was trying to fix kind of the fundamentals of the game, the core of the game. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of the issues that are being discussed right now, is they're kind of surface level. And that's not to say that they're unimportant. Actually, they're very important. But my point is, if you make it so that the content in Act 6 is not so specific, where you need these like 1 or 2 champions to get through a node reasonably, even if you took that away, I still wouldn't. It still wouldn't fix the underlying issues for me. And I want to start with kind of figuring out what the core of MCOC is. The ultimate foundation to this game is you. And it's me, and it's everybody who plays this game. We are the summoner, right? It's kind of the unseen, but we are the summoner in the contest. Directly, like 1 level up from that, from the foundation, I actually kind of said this a little bit incorrectly when it came to Alliance Wars, but 1 level up from that foundation is literally what we are holding in our hands, which is our champions. We are playing with our thumbs, or some crazy people out there playing claw style to control our champions. That, I think, is the first place to look. And I agree with people when they say most of the champions in this game hardly have a use. And that has such a crazy ripple effect on every other thing in this game. It makes it so that even just looking at the rewards that you get, I saw people clear the Abyss and have nothing that they can do with the rewards. They pulled garbage for champions, or they opened up their 6-star Nexus crystal and still found garbage in those pulls. And to some extent, it's part of what built MCOC and part of what made it so fun. Having champions that are good versus champions that are bad. It makes it so that when you're newer to this game, it keeps you excited to open up those crystals. And of course, when you have no champions at all, even pulling bad champions still has that level of excitement and will allow you to continue progressing through the game. And it's what starts so many conversations about which champions are best, and rank up advice, and all those types of things that I find to be really interesting. But eventually you play this game long enough and you figure out, okay, only certain champions. Like when you build up a large enough roster, there's very few champions that you can actually pull that will be good. And I think this is a problem with the way that 6-stars were rolled out as well, where the only way to replace your super amazing, best-in-class 5-star champions is to pull those same ones as 6-stars. I wish that they just didn't even exist as 6-stars, to be honest, man. Like, let's take Aegon, for example. I think it's fine that Aegon is as powerful as he is, and that he's the ultimate solution to the Labyrinth, and is the best champion for a lot of the fights in the Abyss and things like that. But he should have been capped off as a 5-star. That's what Kabam did when they were transitioning to 5-stars, is they just said, okay, certain champions, they're not coming back. Or if they're coming back, they're gonna come back so much later on down the line that it's not gonna matter as much. It's kind of a joke that Wolverine would be too powerful. Like, his healing would be too powerful as a 5-star or a 6-star at this point, because it's just like one ability, where these characters now have like 10 amazing abilities. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, okay, where do you go from here? It's like we hit the ceiling in terms of power level for champions. What comes after the Abyss, and who's going to be the best option for that? It's still going to be Aegon. It's just going to be a 6-star version of Aegon, or they're going to have to design the content in such a crazy way that prevents you from using Aegon, and that's going to prevent you from using most other champions as well. It's the same problem that we ran into before 12.0 hit, where they added the Dold node to Labyrinth of Legends. And that was a direct response to players just plowing through with Scarlet Witch. And then once they toned down Scarlet Witch, well, that's how, they were able to change and remove that Dold node from Labyrinth, and then that opened up the options. And I'm not saying to tone down these champions. I'm just saying I wish they never came back as 6 stars. As a matter of fact, I've tried to come up with other solutions other than nerfing these champions for a long time now. I made videos back in 2017 about this relic system, which I know is not coming to the game. Kabam they're definitely not going the item route. A lot of people did not want to see something like that, and ultimately I think this is what we're going to be seeing in I mean, not this exactly, but we're going to be, we're definitely seeing an item system in Realm of Champions. I tried as recent as earlier this year to come up with a way to largely buff champions without directly buffing them, ways to kind of unlock their potential and have them reach even close to similar power levels as some of these ultimate gods. But the thing is, like, man, there's just nowhere to go. We hit that ceiling. Champions, it's with like certain champions have guaranteed crits. This was something that was never supposed to be. I don't think, at least. I mean, maybe it was always planned by Kabam, but we went through that period where we saw things get out of control with certain abilities, where there was a way to 100% perfect block every single attack, just have 100% block rating, where all you have to do is hold the left side of the screen and you beat the content. And I thought Kabam learned from that when they took that away, so that they opened up which champions we could play, because that's what was happening, is everybody was playing those same teams, and if you weren't playing those same teams, you were crazy. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen, is even if they tone down some of what, some of the specifics in Act 6, well, it doesn't really matter. Players are still going to gravitate towards these ultra-powerful, just beyond gods of the contest that make every other champion look like garbage comparatively. It's not that, when content gets opened up, oh yeah, we're going to have a good time and we're going to get to play with any of the champions that we have on our roster. No, players are still going to use the absolute best of the best, 80%, even more. If we consider 80% of the champions being hardly useful today, if Kabam opens up the nodes and the combinations, things like that we're able to bring into Act 6, well, that's just going to make it that 95% of the champions have no use in this game. So I think the big issue, for me at least, is just the champion balance or lack thereof. And like I said, I tried to come up with ways to avoid nerfing these champions, and I do think it's possible, but I think Kabam kind of dug themselves in a hole by not limiting which champions come back as 6 stars. I don't think they should have brought back the garbage ones either. I don't think we should see, Groot as a 6-star, but we have him. But I also, at the same time, don't think that we should have seen, Corvus and Ghost and Omega Red and some of these other champions. I don't think we should have seen them come back as 6 stars. And that way, now that they're, especially now when they have a better handle on the balance for these new champions coming out, they could still be exciting, because it's going to be a different experience, and it's not that we have to pull the same version of a champion, and that's the only way to replace them. Instead, we could have versions of these 6-star champions that were released that would be more exciting, in my opinion. So yeah, that to me is the largest issue in the game right now, is just the balance of champions that, again, has a ripple effect on the content that's being designed, trying to keep us interested in these new champions coming out, but instead it just ends up feeling very punishing. It has an effect on the way that we look at rewards, where they're less interesting because of, there's only very few champions that we can pull that are actually exciting. And it also has an effect on Alliance War and kind of how the game how Alliance War has evolved with defensive tactics, trying to shake things up, and creating a lot of issues there, where very few champions are actually playable in that game mode as well. I still really wanted to see a small scale PvP added to this game. I'm actually really surprised that we haven't seen one, because Seaton and I think we actually agree on a lot of things when it comes to this game, but our approaches to the game, I would say that is pretty different between us. but we still want to see a lot of the same things, and a small-scale PvP system. I was thinking, like, man, if both Seed and I, this is like our number one request, or if not number one request to see in the game, it's certainly high on the list. The fact that we haven't seen one yet, man, like, I have to think Kabam has tried, at least, behind the scenes, made some sort of, you know, made some sort of kind of concept that they tested out and maybe they just didn't find to be satisfying for one reason or another. But that's another idea that I think would help the champion balance issue, is if there was a small-scale PvP mode where you can have like a banning phase, because other games do this in like MOBAs and stuff, you know, Dota, League of Legends, things like that, where you can just outright ban certain champions for that round. Or even if they wanted to keep it faster paced and didn't let us ban characters, even if it was just like a you know, each match you select from a kind of random pool of champions that you can, you know, quickly like throw on defense and take to attack or something like that. But very fast-paced matches lasting, you know, 20 minutes at most. I would just love to see an idea like that, and it would keep these other champions, these new champions, especially the champions that we're seeing in 2020 that a lot of people are not happy with, they're not excited about. It would keep them being exciting because, you know, getting these champions would give an edge in a game mode like that where you couldn't necessarily play Quake, because maybe Quake wouldn't be available in that match or something. So I would love to see something like that come to the game, and I'm honestly just very surprised that we have not seen something like that hit the game. I can only imagine there has to be something, you know, that Kabam tried and maybe they determined is not good, or maybe they feel like it's just not right for this game, and maybe that's why they're going to Realm of Champions and they want to make that more of their PvP side of the contest, or whatever, you know, the Battle Realm, I guess it should be, whereas Contest is more of the PvE side of things. I don't know, but it sucks, man. It sucks that we haven't seen something like that, to be totally honest. Which brings me to my next kind of core issue with the game right now, which is just the amount of time that's required to play this game. And, you know, I think we see this a lot. People, especially, they like to bring up Alliance Quest as being kind of the biggest offender here, where people have to log in so many times throughout the day, and it keeps you having to check in with your line chat and your alliance, and just always logging in. Can make you stay up later at night, can make you wake up earlier than you wanted to. You're just losing sleep, and that's not going to make anybody happy. There's only so long people can last doing that. And yeah, I would, you know, I actually don't really mind Alliance Quest, but things in my life have changed that kind of prevent me from being reliable in Alliance Quest 2. So I would love to be able to rejoin For Loki, but the way that Alliance Quest currently is, with those amount of check-ins, that I am not going to be a reliable Alliance member. So there's other problems with Alliance Quest and everything like that people brought up, but again, trying to keep it a little bit quicker. To me, the core issue is just the amount of time that needs to be invested in a game mode like Alliance Quest. And I think when this game was new, you know, I started playing this game when Alliance Quest was already a game mode. I know players started playing this game before AQ even existed, but Alliance Quest is actually what got me into the game. You know, I looked over my friend's shoulder who was playing this game, and I thought, a mobile one-on-one fighting game? No, get that out of my face, dude. This game is terrible. I don't want to play. Like, I'm going to have a terrible experience. It's just not my type of game, right? That's what I thought originally about Marvel Contest of Champions. And then I overheard two of my friends, subtle brag that I actually have more than one friend. That's right. I overheard two of my friends talking about this game, and you know, they were trying to figure out a way to take down Hulk together. It was actually the first mini boss of map 1 of Alliance Quest, and kind of a little bell went off in my head, like, whoa, wait a minute, you guys can actually like team up and fight together? Okay, I mean, how does that work? I'm interested. You got me now. So like, that sounded really cool, and that got me to download the game. And I was thinking, like, yeah, you know, the game's all right, but if I could also help out my friends who also like this game, like, okay, this game just went next level, and I'm into it. And it started out not being too bad because, of course, those lower levels of Alliance Quest are not as time demanding. And back then there was no Map 6 and there was no Map 7. But as these maps have kind of increased in difficulty, and it also increases the amount of time required. Even if there's like the same number of nodes, the fights in Map 7, they take a little bit longer. It honestly wasn't that bad doing the fights, but the point is it's a little bit extra time. And all these little things add up. Not to mention, when Alliance Quest first existed, there was no Alliance War. We didn't have bonus content to do every month, which, you know, I'm so happy that we have that stuff. But the point is, there was just a lot fewer things to do in this game. There was no dungeons or incursions. The arenas existed, but players didn't have the sheer number of champions in our rosters to spend as much time as we can in the arenas. And it's all optional things. Nobody's forcing us to play any of these modes. We can just pick out one game mode to play. But of course, it's more fun when you get to do a variety of things. So the point I'm trying to make is, as these modes got added, rather than increasing or even keeping the same amount of time required to be invested in one game mode, I wish that it kind of, you know, less time was needed. I don't mind if the time requirement goes up a little bit, but instead of stacking an entire new game mode on top of it, you know, I would have rather seen, like, okay, the game modes require just a little bit less time, and then you stack a game mode on top of it that's going to keep a relatively similar amount of time needed playing this game. And this is something that I've talked about in the past plenty of times as well, where you know, even when things like the smaller scale PvP system, I kind of wanted just one set of PvP rewards, so that way you can take your pick. Do you want to play a larger scale game mode like Alliance War to get your PvP rewards, or would you rather get that through ranking in a smaller scale mode? And maybe give a little bit more of an incentive to the larger scale one, just because it is a lot more difficult to manage a high number of players, but keep it to something maybe just you know, a small difference. Same thing with you know, if we, you know, think about like the dungeons or the incursions. When that game mode first came out, my first piece of feedback on it was, okay, this is fun, but there's too many things to do in this game. And the rewards, you know, I have to continue playing Arena because that's where I get the units in this game. And even if the incursions are rewarding and everything, still, it's, you know, I wish there was one set of rewards, like they shared milestones or something like that. Like, you know, if I don't know what the best way to go about doing it, but just for the sake of illustrating the point, if we had it in the objectives, where, you know, sometimes you can, the objectives say do this or this to claim this reward, and that's kind of how I wish it was with dungeons or incursions in the arena, where you can do this or that to get the rewards for it. So that's, yeah, just the overall amount of time has gone up in this game, and it's gotten to a point where again, no one's forcing anybody to participate in all these modes, but that's the thing, is like, okay, so what does that turn into? Well, that turns into people stepping down from their alliances. Whereas I feel like it would be better if players didn't have to step down from their alliances. And that's, yeah, that's just kind of how things go. So that to me is the second core issue, is just the amount of time. It's not, you know, again, I think of like the amount of energy that needs to be spent in Alliance Quest and link nodes and stuff like that. I see those as kind of these surface level issues that have cropped up from this root issue of the amount of time required to play this game. And you can make little changes to the energy system in Alliance Quest, and there'll be improvements, and I welcome improvements like that, but at the end of the day, kind of the overall amount of time, if they can find kind of multiple points to pick from and adjust just to bring down the overall amount of time, that would make me incredibly happy. And as we look at each one of these different game modes, it's clear that there's one area that really stands out more than any other, and that's the alliance-based activities. If you look at solo content, the story quests, event quests, the arenas, the incursions, even specialty areas like the Abyss, all this stuff you can play on your own time. Sure, there might be some incentive to complete the Abyss to get the next rank up to increase your prestige and things like that, and that's fine, but you can still do that on your own time. No one's really forcing you to log in at a specific time throughout the day. Whereas Alliance Quest and Alliance War, that is how it goes. And I think there's room for the game to have stuff like this. Again, I would still love some quality of life improvements to that, but what I really want is just to change the core functionality of alliances. You know, when Alliance Quest, the first alliance-based activity, was added, right? Map 5 was the highest, and there wasn't a requirement for all 10 people to join the battle group. Of course, it was helpful when all 10 people joined, but it wasn't a requirement. And as 6 and 7 got added, then it was a requirement. Okay, 10 people better be in there. Everyone's doing their own thing. And to be honest with you, I like that. I like having my own dedicated path where I'm responsible for my path. I don't have to, you know, make up for anyone's slack, and they don't have to make up for my slack or anything like that. It's on me, and it's on every individual in the alliance, right? But what about the times where you're going on vacation or you're going to have a little bit of a busier schedule at work? I mean, I've talked to so many people that just make up a story. Oh man, ate some crazy fast food last night, or you know, it's messing with my stomach. Now I got to take 12 bathroom breaks in the afternoon, practically losing their jobs just to, you know, just to keep up an alliance quest. It's ridiculous. So, in addition to some of those quality of life things that can, you know, maybe reduce the amount of times needed to log in throughout the day and everything, I also think it would be great if we could just cap the number of people in a battle group to 8 instead of 10. For the highest levels of Alliance Quest, still keep it to, you know, 8 paths for map 7, and for the other maps, not, you know, still have that slack that you can have people double up on paths and stuff like that, but it would just allow people to take breaks from Alliance Quest without taking breaks from the Alliance or breaks from the game entirely. In addition to that, you'll have some people that maybe they favor Alliance Quest over Alliance War, or vice versa, and then you can kind of have dedicated members that, you know, they have the highest prestige, but maybe they're not the most skilled fighters, and they hate the pressure of Alliance War, so they can be dedicated to Alliance Quest. And then some members are just dedicated to Alliance War, and then some members like to play both, so they play both. And then, you know, every once in a while, even if you like to play both, you get an opportunity to take that break, and someone else can fill in your spot. Or if at the end of the season someone really does just want to take a break from the game, you're not scrambling to fill in these spots, because you need all 30 members if you want to be a map 7 Alliance Quest that runs 3 battle groups map 7. You have that little bit of leeway. There's a little bit less planning that each officer needs to do, in addition to less planning when it comes to recruiting. There'd be a little bit less planning throughout the maps for Alliance Quest. You know, I mean, there still would be a need for officers to kind of step in and set people up on their paths for the more difficult content, but instead of 10 paths, there'd be 8. You know, so just a 20% reduction in the amount of people and paths that you need to manage. And for Alliance War, we do already have that 1 extra member per group. So instead of 9 paths in War, there'd be 7. So you still have that extra person, but you know, there still would be a little bit less planning needed. And again, not every member would need to participate. So these are kind of the bigger changes that I'm talking about to allow people to, you know, just have more freedom on how we're spending our time in the game. And again, I still want some of the other quality of life changes, but this is one of the core issues that I'm talking about. I have one last core issue that I want to address in this video, but before we get into that, quick little recap. The ultimate core, as far as I'm concerned in this game, it's you, it's me, it's the summoner. Everyone playing this game, right? That is the ultimate core to this game. And then up from there is the champions that we were playing with and how we were spending our time playing these champions. And I wish we had more control over those things. I wish more champions were useful, and the deeper you get into this game, the more apparent it becomes that only certain champions truly are useful. You can use just about any champion, but you're going to have a miserable time doing so. So I wish that these champions were better and we got to pick a little bit more. I actually would prefer if there was no god tier. I don't care. Some people say it would be boring. Opening up crystals, you lose that excitement of pulling good champions versus bad champions. Listen, man. I've opened up a lot of crystals, and at this point, I'm just looking for a better game to play rather than an excitement from opening up a crystal. But let's move on to that final core concept that I want to talk about, which if we keep kind of going outward from the player and what's in our control, then we get to the world, the entire battle realm as a whole. And here's where I feel like Kabam has a little bit more free reign to do what they want. I don't necessarily need to be in full control of the world. Kabam can put certain restrictions, which, hey, man, don't freak out. I'll get to that in a second. But they can put certain restrictions, or they can put certain bonuses with things like the incursions, keep certain ideas to certain modes. And as long as the champions that we're playing with, and of course certain other changes that would need to happen. Again, I mean, I did make that hour-long video about Alliance War. It wasn't about champion balance. There was plenty of other issues, but I do kind of want Kabam to get more creative with just the entire world as a whole. And going back to the idea of restrictions. When Act 6 first came out, a lot of people probably forget this because I did have a good time going through 6.2, but I made a long video talking about how I would have preferred Kabam to roll out Act 6 and the restrictions they had, where I said, I think starting with restrictions is okay. Incorporate that into the story where it's the Grandmaster kind of casting this barrier around Act 6 where only certain high enough level champions can even enter. But then as you defeat the bosses or certain paths, you're kind of weakening this barrier as you're taking out his henchmen, and that opens up bringing in different champions, opens up bringing in 4-star champions and things like that. That's how I wanted to see Act 6 play out. At the same time, I do actually enjoy the challenge of being restricted to using only certain champions. So here's what I'm proposing. Just different difficulties. This is actually an idea that I talked about for Act 6 as well. So all these ideas, these conversations really aren't anything new. It's just trying to put it all in one condensed source here in this video. But in the same way that we have a variant difficulty in the, for the back issues quests, something similar to this. Not exactly like this. It doesn't have to be variant, but I would have preferred to see some other challenge mode get added where maybe, no retreat when fighting the champion. That's not part of the normal content. That's a challenge mode. Or maybe toning down some of those fights. Maybe the Mr. Sinister boss in 6.2, maybe he doesn't have caustic temper unless you want to take on a challenge mode version of him. Or the Darkhawk boss in the 4th quest doesn't start out with that unblockable phase for the first 30 seconds. That's part of the challenge mode. And you don't get actual rewards to rank up your champions. It's more of a cosmetic reward. And maybe that's how the legend system works. It's based on who can beat these challenges the fastest or things like that, rather than just having to sit down and stare at your phone for 10 hours straight to try to get a Legends title. Instead, it'd be more on actually beating certain challenges. I would prefer to see the game go that type of route where the content is not quite as demanding to allow more players to experience that content. You could still make it difficult. There still needs to be that level of challenge. Otherwise, it's going to be way too boring to get through. But at least instead of trying to find this middle ground where there's only one level to go through and much fewer players actually get through that content, I'd rather more players get through the content and earn the rewards that rank up their champions, earn the titles that are going to keep them progressing through this game, and then take the difficulty, skim the difficulty off the top of all of the chapters in Act 6 and Act 7 and pretty much everywhere in the game, and keep that stuff to challenge modes, just to keep the players who would find the regular difficulty to be fun, but not quite demanding enough to keep them truly engaged with the game, and leave that stuff to a separate challenge mode. So yeah, the last core thing here is just the overall difficulty of the game and the tuning of it, and I wish that there was a kind of a separate difficulty for this stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is something so beautiful to having only one difficulty at times. It's just so much cleaner than, you know, looking at like the monthly event quest and seeing that there's 4 difficulties to it, and we're about to get a Cavalier difficulty at some point here. But I don't think we necessarily need that for story content. I'm just talking about a normal difficulty and then a challenge mode where it would be much shorter. You know, you only have to go through the challenge one time versus going through the content and doing every single path over again. So I would love to see something like that. I would especially love to see if it was something that couldn't just be bought. You know, it's something that's good and bad about this game, where with enough units you can do anything in this game. You can get through I mean, anything except for ranking the highest in Alliance Wars. That's like the ultimate skill, I guess. But you can buy your prestige, you can buy your way through content, you can buy your way through everything, and I think it's nice on some extent, because it allows a much wider range of players to be able to get through this stuff, where maybe the content is a little bit too difficult without using a bunch of units. Hell, man, I've used a crazy number of units getting through content in this game, outside of, like, you know, the itemless runs that I do. But it would be nice if there was more fights that were maybe like the champion in 6.2.6, where you did have to do something very specific to remove his protection at the end. But again, I would rather see that to a challenge mode and not for the regular content. All right, those are kind of my my 3 biggest issues with this game, that I think if those things were fixed, it would also fix most things in this game. Right, it would allow us to play a larger variety of champions and be more excited to open up crystals, because there's less chance that it's going to be something bad. We would have a little bit more freedom on the amount of time needed to play this game, and not have to take a bunch of bathroom breaks just to move in Alliance War or Alliance Quest, things like that. Tone that down, and then make it so that the difficulty scaling is not so crazy to the point where you're getting one shot going through these fights. Because here's something else too, man. Like, I actually had the best time going through 6.2, and it wasn't just because of itemless. But if we look in 6.2, the last little point that I'll make here is that I actually love this content for the reason of the attack not being so ridiculous. If we look at I'm in 6.2, third quest in. We look at this Captain Marvel. She has less than 5,000 attack, right? If we go to the other acts, 6.3, 6.4, the attack values, they just go up so astronomically. And even the variant difficulties, a lot of people love the variant difficulties because they're rewarding. And to tell you the truth, I don't really love the variant difficulties as much as other people do. I love them because of the rewards. Sure, man, they're crazy rewarding. The amount of rank up gems you get and things like that. But this is variant 4, largely considered by many to be the easiest of the variants, maybe tied with like variant 3 or something. But even here, we see the attack more than doubled than what it was in 6.2. So when the attack values start to get that high, it feels like any little slip up that happens, I just, you know, it's lights out, and it's devastating to go through, and it's the type of gameplay that I don't really enjoy as much. So I may have loved 6.2 and found it to be extremely enjoyable, but as we go on through the rest of the chapters, it gets to a point where I'm you know, I'm completing it, but I'm not having as good of a time completing it. And all right, that'll do it for this video. This video's gone on long enough. Again, there's certain things that I definitely didn't have time to cover in this video, and these are just all my opinions. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with stepping back. So if you are finding yourself, you know, reaching that burnout point in this game, just step back, play a little bit more casually. I'm having a good time. I'm still having a good time. I had a great time in 4 Loki, and I honestly wish I could go back, man. But just, yeah, with the other things that are going on, now's not a good time for it. But if Kabam did make some changes, oh, dude, I'd find myself back in 4 Loki in a heartbeat. I would love it. But yeah, those are my thoughts at least. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next video, and we can certainly continue these discussions on live streams and all that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.